The break room was loud, voices overlapping, laughter sharp and territorial. 4 senior analysts sat around the corner table, their body language claiming ownership of the space. They'd been at Fort Meade for years, knew every corridor, every regulation, every shortcut. When the door opened and the new analyst walked in, they barely looked up. She was younger than expected, mid-30s maybe, athletic build, hair pulled back in a regulation bun. She carried a plain black coffee mug and moved toward the coffee station without acknowledging anyone. One of the analysts, a heavy-set man named Derek, nudged his colleague. "Fresh meat," he muttered. "Probably some contractor they're rotating through." His friend Sarah smirked. "Give her a week. She'll either quit or learn her place." The new analyst poured her coffee slowly, methodically. Her movements were precise but unhurried. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look intimidated. She just looked focused. And that, somehow, made it worse. Derek raised his voice slightly, making sure it carried. "You know what I love about this place? We don't waste time on people who can't keep up." Sarah laughed. "Yeah, the weak ones figure it out fast." The new analyst added cream to her coffee, one measured pour. Then she turned, leaning against the counter, and took a sip. Her eyes swept across the room once, cataloging faces, positions, dynamics. Then she walked to an empty table by the window and sat down. Derek watched her go, his jaw tight. She didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't give them anything. "Who does she think she is?" he said quietly. "Guess we'll find out," Sarah replied. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly know, was that the woman sitting alone by the window wasn't just another analyst. She was Colonel Rachel Kincaid, and starting Monday she would be their new commanding officer. The weekend passed quietly. The analysts went about their routines, unaware that everything was about to change. On Monday morning, the base conference room filled with personnel from the Intelligence Analysis Division. Over 60 people crowded into the space, some standing along the walls, others claiming seats near the front. The room hummed with low conversation. Derek and Sarah sat together in the third row, comfortable in their usual spots. They'd been through command transitions before. New leadership always made big promises about change and accountability, but nothing ever really shifted. The old hierarchies remained. The power dynamics stayed intact. At 0800 sharp, the door at the front of the room opened. A colonel in dress uniform stepped through. Male, late 50s. Distinguished bearing. Deputy Commander Morrison. He moved to the podium and the room fell silent. "Good morning," Morrison said. His voice carried authority but also something else. A kind of measured caution. "I know you're all expecting to meet your new division commander today. Before I bring her in, I want to set some context." A few people shifted in their seats. Her. That was already interesting. The intelligence community had female leadership, but it was still noteworthy enough to register. Morrison continued. "Colonel Rachel Kincaid comes to us from JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. She spent the last 8 years embedded with special operations units in active theaters, Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Her operational record is classified at the highest levels. But I can tell you this, she's run intelligence operations that most of you will never read about. Operations that saved lives and changed outcomes." Derek leaned toward Sarah. "JSOC," he whispered. "So she's been playing soldier in the desert while we've been doing actual analysis work here." Sarah suppressed a smile. This should be interesting. Morrison's expression remained neutral. Colonel Kincaid requested this assignment. She wanted to transition from field operations to strategic analysis and training. That means she's here to learn your world while bringing her operational experience to improve how this division functions. He paused. She's also here to assess. The word hung in the air. Assess. That meant evaluations. That meant changes. That meant some people might not survive the transition. "I'll be honest with you," Morrison said. "Colonel Kincaid has a reputation. She doesn't tolerate inefficiency, she doesn't tolerate politics, and she doesn't tolerate disrespect. If you do your job well, you'll find her to be one of the best commanders you've ever worked under. If you don't," he let the sentence trail off. The implication was clear. He stepped aside. "Please welcome Colonel Rachel Kincaid." The side door opened, and the woman from the break room walked in. Derek's face went pale. Sarah sat up straighter, her casual smile evaporating. Around the room, a few people who'd seen her over the weekend had similar reactions. Quiet recognition. Dawning horror. Colonel Kincaid moved to the podium with the same unhurried precision she'd shown pouring coffee. She didn't smile. She didn't offer pleasantries. She simply stood there for a moment, her eyes moving across the assembled personnel with the same cataloging sweep she'd done in the break room. When she spoke, her voice was calm, controlled, but it carried weight. Good morning. I'm Colonel Rachel Kincaid. As of 0800 today, I am your division commander. Some of you saw me this weekend. Some of you may have formed opinions about me. That's fine. Opinions are easy. Results are what matter. She placed her hands on the podium, not gripping it for support. Just a casual placement that suggested complete comfort with command. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to maintain the status quo. I'm here because this division has performance issues that have been flagged at the highest levels. You have brilliant people doing exceptional work. You also have systemic problems, inefficiency, internal politics, resistance to change. My job is to identify what's working, amplify it, and eliminate what isn't. Derek felt his stomach drop. Sarah stared straight ahead, her mind racing through every conversation she'd had in the break room, every dismissive comment, every assumption. Kincaid continued, over the next 90 days, I will be conducting comprehensive evaluations, not just of your work product, but of how you work, how you collaborate, how you communicate, how you treat your colleagues. This division will operate as a team, or it will operate without the people who refuse to be team players. She let that sink in. I don't care about tenure. I don't care about who you know or how long you've been here. I care about competence, professionalism, and results. If you bring those things every day, we'll get along fine. If you don't, you won't last 90 days. The room was completely silent now. Deputy Commander Morrison will continue to handle day-to-day operations while I conduct my assessment, Kincaid said. My door is open. If you have concerns, bring them to me directly. If you have ideas for improvement, I want to hear them. If you have problems with how this division operates, now is the time to speak up. Because in 90 days, the excuses end and the expectations become non-negotiable. She straightened. That's all. Get back to work. The dismissal was abrupt but clear. People began filing out, some quickly, others more slowly. Derek and Sarah remained seated until most of the room had emptied. Sarah finally found her voice. We're screwed. Derek nodded slowly. Yeah, we really are. The first week under Colonel Kincaid's command was unlike anything the division had experienced. She didn't start with meetings or PowerPoint presentations. She started by watching. She arrived before anyone else, usually by 0630. She sat in the analysis center, observing workflows, noting who collaborated and who worked in isolation. She reviewed project files, not just the final reports, but the process documentation. She ate lunch in the cafeteria, sitting at different tables each day, listening to conversations without participating, and she noticed everything. On Wednesday, she walked through the analysis floor during peak hours. Derek was at his desk, headphones on, working on a signals intelligence report. Kincaid stopped beside his desk. He didn't notice her at first. When he finally looked up and saw the colonel's insignia, he yanked his headphones off. Ma'am, he stammered. Colonel Kincaid didn't smile. What are you working on, Analyst Warren? Derek glanced at his screen. SIGINT analysis, ma'am. Communications intercepts from the Eastern Corridor. She looked at his monitor. How long have you been working on this? 3 days, ma'am. What's the delivery deadline? Friday, ma'am. She nodded once. Have you consulted with the HUMANT team? Their reports might have corroborating intelligence. Derek hesitated. No, ma'am. I usually work independently. Kincaid's expression didn't change. That's going to change. I want you to coordinate with Analyst Chen from HUMANT before you finalize your report. Cross-reference your intercepts with his source reporting. If there's overlap, I want it documented. If there's contradiction, I want that documented too. Yes, ma'am, Derek said. Kincaid walked away without another word. Derek stared after her, his hands shaking slightly. She just identified in 30 seconds what his supervisor had missed for months. He worked in a silo, and his analysis suffered for it. By the end of the second week, Kincaid had conducted individual meetings with every team lead. She asked specific questions. What are your team's biggest challenges? Where are the bottlenecks in your workflow? Who are your strongest performers and why? Who are your weakest and what have you done to develop them? The team leads quickly realized she'd already done her homework. She knew the answers before she asked the questions. She was testing whether they knew. Sarah Chen, who led the counterintelligence analysis team, sat across from Kincaid in the commander's office. The space was sparse. No personal photos, no decorations, just files, maps, and a laptop. Tell me about your team's performance over the last 6 months, Kincaid said. Sarah had prepared for this. We've exceeded all our production targets, ma'am. We've delivered 97% of our reports on time, and our analysis has been cited in multiple operational briefs. Kincaid looked at her steadily. Why haven't you cited any reports from other teams in your analysis? Sarah blinked. Ma'am, your team produces good work, Kincaid said, but it exists in isolation. In 6 months, you've cited external intelligence sources, open source reporting, and your own previous analysis. But you haven't referenced a single report from the SIGINT team, the imagery team, or the regional analysis team. Why? Sarah struggled to find words. We focus on our area of responsibility, ma'am. Our analysis is sufficient for— Sufficient isn't excellent, Kincaid interrupted. Her tone wasn't harsh, just matter of fact. You're producing analysis in a vacuum. You're missing context, corroboration, and opportunities for integrated intelligence products. That makes your work less valuable, not more. But ma'am, we're meeting our metrics. Metrics aren't mission, Kincaid said. I don't care if you're hitting arbitrary production numbers. I care if your analysis is making our operators smarter and safer. Right now, it's not. Not because your work is bad, but because it's incomplete. Sarah felt her face flush. What do you want me to do? Kincaid slid a piece of paper across the desk. I want you to establish formal coordination with 3 other teams. Weekly sync meetings, shared project planning, cross-citation requirements. I want your next 3 reports to demonstrate integrated analysis, pulling from multiple disciplines. Show me you can work as part of the larger intelligence enterprise, not just as a standalone unit. Sarah took the paper. Her hand trembled slightly. Yes, ma'am. That's all, Kincaid said. And Sarah, one more thing. Sarah paused at the door. Yes, ma'am. I know you're good at what you do, that's why you're still here. But good isn't enough anymore. I need you to be better. The words weren't cruel. They weren't even particularly harsh. But they landed with force because they were true. Sarah nodded and left. As the weeks progressed, the division began to change. Some people rose to the challenge. They started collaborating, sharing information, producing work that was sharper and more comprehensive. Others resisted. They complained about the new requirements. They grumbled about the increased expectations. They pushed back against the collaboration mandates. Kincaid documented everything. On week 7, she called Derek Warren into her office. He'd been dreading this moment since the break room incident. He sat down, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. Analyst Warren, Kincaid began. I've been reviewing your work product over the last 2 months. Derek braced himself. You've improved? She said. His eyes widened slightly. Your recent reports show better integration with other intelligence streams. You're citing sources more comprehensively. You're asking better questions. Thank you, ma'am. Derek managed. But your attitude hasn't improved. Kincaid continued. You still make dismissive comments about junior analysts. You still resist collaboration unless it's mandated. You still operate like you're smarter than everyone else in the room. Derek's mouth went dry. Ma'am, I heard what you said in the break room my first day here, Kincaid said. Her voice remained calm. I heard you call me fresh meat. I heard you predict I'd quit or learn my place. Derek felt his face burning. I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't know. You didn't know I was your commander, Kincaid said. But that's not why it was wrong. It was wrong because you judged someone before you knew anything about them. You created a hostile environment for someone new. You did what weak leaders do. You tried to establish dominance through dismissiveness instead of earning respect through competence. She leaned forward slightly. Here's what's going to happen. You have 45 days to demonstrate a sustained change in how you treat your colleagues. You will mentor 2 junior analysts. You will actively participate in team collaborations without complaint. You will model professional behavior. If you do those things, you'll keep your position. If you don't, you'll be reassigned to a role where your technical skills can be useful but your attitude can't poison a team. Derek nodded, not trusting his voice. That's all, Kincaid said. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of Derek's career. He had to unlearn years of behavior. He had to swallow his pride. He had to actually help people he'd previously dismissed. It was humbling. It was uncomfortable. But slowly, it started to feel less forced. He started to see that collaboration actually made his work better. That listening to junior analysts sometimes yielded insights he'd missed. That respect was something earned through action, not demanded through seniority. By week 12, the division had transformed. The changes weren't dramatic or theatrical. They were quiet, systematic, measurable. Production metrics improved. Quality scores went up. More importantly, the culture shifted. People started sharing information freely. Teams coordinated without being forced. The internal politics that had plagued the division began to dissolve. Not because Kincaid had crushed them, but because she'd created an environment where they couldn't survive. On the final day of the 90-day assessment period, Kincaid called an all-hands meeting. The same conference room, the same personnel. But the atmosphere was different now. People filed in with a sense of anticipation rather than dread. Kincaid stood at the podium, Deputy Commander Morrison beside her. 90 days ago, Kincaid began, I told you this division had performance issues. I told you I would assess, identify problems, and make changes. I've done that. She clicked a remote and a slide appeared behind her. Performance metrics. Before and after. The improvements were undeniable. This division is now operating at a level consistent with its mission and mandate, Kincaid said. You should be proud of that. You did the work. You made the changes. You proved that excellence is achievable when people commit to it. She paused. Some of you struggled with the transition. Some of you are still struggling. That's fine. Change is hard. But you showed up. You tried. You grew. That matters. She clicked to the next slide. Personnel changes. 8 people are being reassigned to positions better suited to their skills and temperament. This isn't punishment. It's alignment. Some people are brilliant individual contributors but poor team members. They'll do better in roles that leverage their strengths without requiring collaboration they're not built for. Derek felt his stomach clench, but his name wasn't on the list. Neither was Sarah's. For everyone staying, Kincaid continued, the expectations I set 90 days ago are now permanent. This is how we operate. This is our standard. If you can maintain it, you'll thrive here. If you can't, we'll help you find somewhere you will. She looked across the room. I want to say something about leadership. Real leadership isn't about dominance. It's not about being the loudest or the most aggressive or the most senior. It's about making everyone around you better. It's about creating environments where excellence is expected and supported. It's about removing obstacles and holding people accountable. Her eyes found Derek's for just a moment. Some of you judged me on day 1. You saw someone new and assumed weakness. That was your mistake, not mine. Because I didn't need you to believe in me. I needed you to believe in yourselves. And over these 90 days, many of you did. She straightened. This division is now equipped to handle the most complex intelligence challenges our nation faces. You have the skills, the processes, and the culture to succeed. My job now is to keep you pointed in the right direction and make sure you have what you need to do your jobs. She nodded once. That's all. Dismissed. As people filed out, several stopped to thank her. Some shook her hand, some just nodded with respect. Derek waited until the room had mostly cleared, then approached. Ma'am, he said quietly. Colonel Kincaid turned to face him. Analyst Warren, I wanted to thank you, he said. The words came hard. You could have fired me on day 1. You had cause, but you gave me a chance to fix my mistakes. I appreciate that. Kincaid studied him for a moment. I didn't do it for you, she said. I did it because I thought you were salvageable. Turns out I was right. Derek managed a small smile. I won't waste the opportunity, ma'am. Good, Kincaid said. Because the next person who walks through that door deserves better than what I got on my first day. Make sure they get it. Yes, ma'am, Derek said. As he walked out, Sarah Chen was waiting in the hallway. She fell into step beside him. So we survived, she said quietly. Derek nodded. Barely. Sarah glanced back at the conference room. She's the real deal, isn't she? Derek thought about it. About the 90 days of uncomfortable growth. About the mirror Kincaid had held up to his behavior. About how much better his work had become when he stopped protecting his ego and started focusing on results. Yeah, he said finally. She really is. They walked in silence for a moment. You think she'll stay? Sarah asked. Derek shrugged. I hope so. Because I don't want to go back to how things were before. Sarah nodded. Neither do I. That evening, Colonel Rachel Kincaid sat in her office reviewing files for the next day. Through her window, she could see the lights of the analysis center, still populated with personnel working late. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because they cared about their work. Because they'd rediscovered why they'd chosen this profession in the first place. Her phone buzzed. A message from Morrison. Well done, Colonel. Division performance scores just came back. We're top-rated in the command. Kincaid allowed herself a small smile. She typed back a simple response. Credit belongs to the team. They did the work. She set her phone down and returned to her files. Outside, Fort Meade continued its 24-hour operational rhythm. Analysts worked. Systems hummed. Intelligence flowed. And in one division, excellence had become the standard again. Not through speeches or theatrics or dominance, but through clear expectations, consistent accountability, and the quiet conviction that people would rise to meet a standard if someone had the courage to set it. Colonel Rachel Kincaid had been that someone, and the division was better for it.